I want to talk about a couple of things that are floating around Vikings Nation. 3 things specifically, in which my response to all 3 in this order is no, no, and I sure as hell hope so. Number 1, Alexander Mattison, through the first 2 games, has amassed 62 yards rushing. The Vikings, as a team, has 69 yards rushing through the first 2 games. The Rams reportedly are looking for trade partners for one Cam Akers. And I've seen the Vikings suggested as a possible landing spot. No, the Vikings will not trade for Cam Akers for 3 reasons. Number 1, I talked about this yesterday. The Vikings have basically enough cap space with everything else considered to absorb one more player. Trading for Cam Akers, you're going to absorb $1.45 million in cap. And if you are going to absorb any more cap for one player, it needs to be on defense, specifically the defensive line. Number 2, the Vikings, let's say the trade compensation for Cam Akers is a mid-round draft pick. It doesn't matter unless it's an end-of-the-line player that they're interested in. The Vikings need all their draft picks heading into 2024, especially if they may need to trade up to draft their quarterback of the future. So you can't spare any draft picks for a running back. And number 3, the run blocking has been so poor. I talked about this maybe a week or 2 ago, saying that, well, the one thing with the offensive line is they were always decent run blockers. Somehow, some way, that has even regressed. Putting Cam Akers in the backfield isn't going to solve your rushing issues. Even, I think, if you were to have, say, prime Adrian Peterson or Barry Sanders, those are the only 2 players that could make up for that crappy run blocking that has been displayed by the Vikings offensive line. It would just be a monumental waste of time. So that's number 1. Number 2, the Jets going into this season had such high expectations. They traded for Aaron Rodgers. They have one hell of a defense. Nice weapons on offense. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall. I mean, goodness, they brought on Allen Lazard. They brought on all of Rodgers' family from Green Bay. Such high expectations. Championship aspirations. Even though I didn't believe that. Their offensive line struggles. Older version of Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if he would overcome that, but that's neither here nor there. Either way, such high expectations. The season opener goes out there with the flag and everyone's so excited. And 4 snaps, 75 seconds, it's all over. Done for the year. Zach Wilson, their backup quarterback, clearly ain't it. They need a quarterback desperately. If they don't trade for one, their season hopes are shot, which is so just sad in a way, disappointing if you're a Jets fan for sure. And to a degree, to a much smaller degree, it reminds me of the 2016 Vikings. After the 2015 playoffs, where Blair Walsh, the wide left miss, could have made it, advanced past the wild card round, going into the next season, 2016, there was hope among Vikings Nation that saying, man, that was just a blip on the radar. We have a strong team, a pretty good defense, Teddy Bridgewater, Adrian Peterson. This could be a really, really good team. And during training camp, Teddy Bridgewater, the starting quarterback, suffered that horrific leg injury, out for the year. Are you kidding me? All the hopes that we had, gone. Are we really going to have to rely on Sean Hill? You got to do something, and they did. And I will always support Rick Spielman for this, forever trading for Sam Bradford. It was the right move. And to me, Bradford, is the one of the ultimate what could have been stories in this franchise, especially in 2017 with the number one ranked defense. Had he been healthy in the NFC Championship game, even in a loss, it would have been much more competitive to say 38-7. But going back to the Jets Nation, they are going through all holy hell right now. I've seen this suggested from Mike Greenberg, Mike Tannenbaum, and Forbes.com. The Jets should trade for Kirk Cousins. It's not going to happen for two reasons. Number one, the Vikings still feel as though they can be competitive this year. They showed you that much a couple of days ago after signing Dalton Risner on a 1-year, $4 million deal. They're not going to make that move if this were a throwaway year. Number two, Kirk has a no trade clause. He's not going to waive it. Maybe during the off season, sure, but having to pack up, leave mid-season and go to another team as a quarterback to learn a whole new system, a whole new playbook with a whole set of different code words compared to what you already know in Minnesota, that's a lot to overcome so shortly. And also, in Minnesota, he knows there's a chance that they're not going to re-sign him after this year. You go to the Jets, they may celebrate you right now, but you have Aaron Rodgers in the waiting. They signed him he's there under contract for 2 years, so not just this year, even though he's out for the season, but he's going to be there next year. So he knows no matter what he does, short of winning a championship, he's going to be a free agent next year, next offseason, that I'm going to end up on a different team. So if there's a chance that I could end up on a different team after Minnesota, I would rather take that route if I'm Kirk Cousins, because if the alternative is if I were to go to the Jets, I would have to essentially move twice. That's way too much for Kirk Cousins to try to overcome. Number 3, talking about the Vikings quarterback of the future. Now, mind you, in next year's draft, you've got teams like the Bears, except I wouldn't even put it past Ryan Poles, with Justin Fields next season going into his 4th year out of Ohio State, where he may say, we're going to give him one more chance before we draft our next quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if they were to do that, but still, potentially, the Bears, definitely the Cardinals, and Tampa, maybe the Vegas Raiders are going to be looking for quarterbacks. And it's going to be loaded. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix. I tell you what, man, I'm all in on Shedeur Sanders, damn it. I've seen enough. Even in just 3 games at Colorado, he has an NFL arm. He's not afraid to make NFL throws. He embraces the high pressure downs, so clutch, has swag, confidence in his playing abilities, not just talking the talk. He walks the walk. And no matter what the record is for the Vikings, no matter what slot they have in the first round of next year's draft, and I know that I saw where Deion Sanders said, no, my 2 sons, Shiloh and Shedeur, they're coming back to Colorado next year. Shedeur Sanders, he can make that decision for himself. I'm believing it. As far as him declaring for the draft, I will believe he will do that until he doesn't. But no matter what slot the Vikings have in the first round, I believe that Shedeur Sanders will be available to Minnesota. Because there are 2 sides to the draft process for every player. There's watching said player in real time, this college football season right now, and then there's after the season. The moment that a player declares for the draft, outside of the clear number 1 through number 3 projected picks, the moment that that player declares for the draft, we look for not me, but the media especially looks for every reason to pick that player apart. So, for example, with Shedeur Sanders, I can see it already right now. 1 year playing at the FBS level. I don't know. Colorado State, you were 28-point favorites. Why did it go to double overtime? Is this some sort of fluke? Is Deion Sanders going to be a distraction? Do we want that distraction? Every which way, they're going to say, I don't know. We got to see his pro day. We got to see him in the combine and all this other crap where it's like, not just look at the tape. Look at his games. He is him. So no matter what, I'm all in on Shedeur Sanders. He's that guy.